Going live. Hello, everyone. Blessed be. Welcome to Mystery Witch School. Today we're talking about ancestral wisdom and particularly healing the ancestral line, because that's mostly my experience with working with ancestors has been on the healing department. But we'll talk about other ways that you can work with your ancestors as well. While we're waiting for people to come online, welcome to those of you also watching the replay. You can certainly join in on the conversation, even if you're watching the replay in the comments field. And if you're watching the chat, you're live, you can certainly join in the chat. And if you're new to Mystery Witch School, completely welcome to Mystery Witch School. My name is Sandra, and what we do here on this channel is we talk about Wicca, witchcraft, magic, tarot, shadow work, and I also do spell demonstrations and things like that too from time to time. But it's mostly here to inspire you towards practicing your craft regularly and to get you feeling into that sense of connection to nature, finding different ways that you can connect to nature, connect to your path. And more than anything, it's about you connecting to your powerful self, knowing that you do have the power to be able to create yourself, create your life in a way that is enjoyable to you. And while that may not necessarily be an easy thing to do, it's certainly a worthwhile thing to do. And it always is gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of potential. And I really feel that the witchcraft path can do that. It can be a spiritual path. It doesn't have to be just about practical day-to-day magic, trying to just survive in the world. Let's go beyond survival and look at thriving in the world in a way that gives us meaning and a way that gives us a connection to our true, deeper spiritual selves, so that we can rise above all of the nonsense and the fear and the difficulties that being on this planet in this life seems to bring. So hello, Sandy. Hello. Hello, Anjali. Hello, Maria. It's good to see you all here on the live. Now, if you want to know where to start your witchcraft practice, but you're just know a little bit about what witches do, you're just trying to put it together so that you can have a practice and that you can learn more, and you'd like just a little bit of guidance into how to structure your learning, I have a free video called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice, and I will put the link in the chat, and there's also a link in the description field below this video, and you can also grab it at my website, mysterywitchschool.com. I have quite a few freebies on my website, so if you're interested in a little bit about spell casting, where to start your witchcraft practice, even a bit of shadow work, there is a freebies tab on my website, and you can go and have a look at that and see what is there for you on mysterywitchschool.com. Okay. Hi, Spice Lover. Okay, I think that's all I have to do let's get going. So let's talk about ancestral wisdom and working with our ancestors. Now, some people may not want to work with ancestors. I completely understand if your family is incredibly dysfunctional or it just has not been a very good family experience. You may not want to have anything to do with your ancestors. But when I'm talking about working with ancestors, it's a lot of the time it's about healing the ancestral line, and that's been most of the work I've done with my ancestors, has been to heal us, to free us from the things we pass down from generation to generation. And a lot of our beliefs about the world are passed down from generation to generation, traumas passed down from generation to generation, and that affects us genetically, and it also affects us energetically as well. And the ancestral work I like to do is to help heal that. So while I'm healing it within myself through various different techniques of shadow work and inner work, I'm also healing the ancestral stuff as well, so that it makes that the next generation and the next generation, hopefully, when they reincarnate again, if they choose to do so, that there's more options for them when they do. Now, your ancestors can also help you too with guidance to help you through your work that you're doing magically, or work that you're doing on yourself, particularly the work that you're doing on healing. They can be there to assist in some way, shape, or form. So, the role of ancestor work in spiritual practice is something that has been in many, many, many cultures throughout history. And it's a way of respecting where we've come from. It's a way of honoring those who have gone before us and provided for us ahead of time. And acknowledging that we're not alone, that we actually have a spiritual family as well. And while a lot of us perhaps come from very dysfunctional families, families that are quite traumatic, there is generally an ancestor somewhere that you would be able to connect with who would be a supportive energy for you. Now, ancestor, I guess, technically means like your grandparents, great grandparents, great great grandparents, so on and so on. But when you're working with your ancestors, it can also be your bloodline as well. So it might be an aunt or a grand aunt, or a cousin, or somebody like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your direct ancestors like grandparents, etc., and parents. It can be uh, other bloodline as well. And traditionally, in a lot of cultures, even today, they will have ancestor altars that are specially set up with pictures of ancestors, of people that passed on, and will often light a candle. And at particular times of the year, particularly around Samhain, will then, or in the Christian calendar, it's the Day of the Dead or All Souls Day. They will have a particular, maybe a ritual, or just spend an extra time at their altar, remembering their ancestors and feeling that gratitude for the positive things that have been passed down from generation to generation. So let me know in the comments whether you've done ancestor work before, or you're interested in it, or there's a particular bloodline or ancestor that you want to connect up with, or if there's one that's actually wanting to connect up with you. If you've been fortunate enough to be with a parent or a relative when they've passed on, and you've had a connection with them through experiencing the transition process with them, sometimes they can often be around to help guide you, and as well, because you've shared that experience of the other world with them by being present when they've transitioned. So just let me know in the comments field, and also in the chat, what your experiences may be. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Joe. Okay. Go back far enough. All our ancestors were pagan. Oh, absolutely. Yes. And our ancestors go back a long way, a long, long way. When we think about it, and if anybody's done their genealogy, or they've gone to try and trace your ancestral tree, it can be very interesting to find out the other family groups that you're connected to, and various different people that have popped up in your bloodline or ancestry that may be famous or semi-famous, or did something really outrageous, were rebels, or maybe they did other things that were the opposite. And so it's good to sort of have a look at your family tree, and you can sort of see your own personality and some of the traits that you may have yourself sort of in ancestors that may be quite a distance from you as far as time is concerned. And even resemblances, family resemblances, can be almost identical, yet there's generations between one ancestor and yourself. So there's an amazing connection biologically and spiritually to our ancestors and those who've gone before. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Robert. Okay. So they do have a role in spiritual practice, and I never really focused too much on my ancestors before I started working with Hecate, as Hecate, again, being a goddess that works with the dead. She also can help you with working with your ancestors as well, and sometimes bring you closer to them if you're wanting to work with your ancestors. When I do offerings at the end of a morning practice or a ritual or whatever, I always include my ancestors in there with the local spirits and my guides as well as my higher self as a part of that gratitude. And my experience with my ancestors really happened when my father passed last year. And my sister and I were fortunate enough to be with him when he passed. And we had this profound connection and profound feeling of the ancestors being there, and also of my father when he just passed on. There was a real connection there between the three of us, and the energy, even the energy in the body, the chi in his body was interesting to experience. It was like a real energy surge just after he passed in the body. So, but there was this real sense of the heart opening up spontaneously and this sense of profound love because we knew he was going. And so I sort of set up this connection with him just before he went. And then when he went, it was already there. The heart opened up and I could really feel a sense of connection with him, but also with my ancestors on that side of my family. And I never spent a lot of time with that side of the family, and I never really knew too many of them on that side of the family, probably only one, and that was my auntie. Um, and so it was interesting that they were there, and there was a sense of connection to them. Anyway, like my grandmother, my aunt, and it was a sense of that work that I've done on the healing work, the shadow work that I've done on my mother and father and my bloodline and ancestors, which is a work that I do when I'm releasing thoughts or beliefs. I also release those thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions from my mother and father, from my ancestors, and from my bloodline. And I really feel that from doing that for such a long time was a way of me connecting to my ancestors when they all showed up for my father's transition. So it was a real family reunion and very, very beautiful experience. Uh, it was because it really did feel like an an overwhelming sense of love and peace. And for my father and I, there was an element of me forgiving him uh, for for sort of not being present in my upbringing. And it was kind of like it felt like it was something that was meant to happen, and it was a relationship that through my experiences of childhood, not having a father much around, it sort of brought me to where I was, and in a way, even the negative aspects of the relationship were to be there was gratitude for that as well, because if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have gone on the path that I went on, and I've received a lot of, wonderful gifts as a result of that. So it was a real opportunity when he passed to let go of all of the negative aspects and embrace that family connection. And it's a really strong connection that we have with our ancestors. Whether we want to have a connection with them or not, it is a very strong and profound connection that we have with them. So ever since I find my father sort of comes around here and there, I sense him around from time to time because of that connection. I've made connections to relatives on my mother's side who have passed over before they passed over, like my aunt. And I felt that when I made that connection to them before they passed, it was much easier to connect with them after they've passed. There. So the way that you can connect to your ancestors is you don't have to wait for them to pass over, or be present, I should say, for them to pass over. If you're connecting with, your parents even now, if your parents are still alive, um, they're still setting up that connection in the physical, because when they pass, if they pass before you, which generally happens, you'll be experiencing them on the other side as well. So the methods that you can use meditation, you can use like incantations or prayers to ask them to be present. You can create an ancestor altar with the photographs on there, and if you've got any keepsakes that you've inherited from them or gifts that they may have given you before they passed on, you can put those on your altar as well. And spend some time just giving thanks to them. So if you're doing your morning practice, you can be thanking your ancestors as well. You don't have to be lighting candles on your altar every day if it's not practical to do so. But just acknowledge them on a daily basis when you're doing your morning practice or evening practice, or whenever you do your daily practice. If you do a daily practice, then when you're giving your offerings and thanks to the deities you might be working with, it's also giving thanks to your ancestors and also your guides and the local spirits local to where you live, and perform your rites. Our ancestors give us the difficulties in life. They do. They're often responsible for the tough stuff that we experience. I mean, obviously, there's other life stuff that happens too, and our upbringing is often affected by other things that are going on in the world, and how our parents or caregivers are reacting to those things that are going on in their lives. But often we react according to how our parents reacted when we were children. They were our influence, they were our role models. So we tend to carry on the behavior of our ancestors as our parents carried on their way of coping from their ancestors, and so on and so on. So when it comes to doing this kind of work, we can look at things that aren't working for us and break the cycle and try to change things so that we can break that more dysfunctional aspect of our ancestral line by changing how we do things. And as we do that, offering healing and release for our ancestors as well. So with ancestral meditation, you could use guided meditations to connect you to your ancestors, to open communication. I'm sure there is heaps of those on YouTube that you could try. If you're wanting to work with ancestors and you're feeling sort of like, should I set up a circle? How should I protect myself? Because you want to make sure it's your ancestors that are coming through and not anything else. Then you could set up a circle, a Wiccan circle, or just a sacred space, however you set your circles up or set your sacred space up, and do your ancestor work in your sacred space so that you feel much safer and are also more protected from any lower astral entities or anything that may want to try and pretend that their grandma or grandpa or somebody like that. And when you're doing the meditation, you may have an experience there with an ancestor just popping in out of nowhere. You might not even know who they are. You might have come across them on a family tree. And it's up to you then how you interact with that ancestor. If you're doing a guided meditation, that will already be a part of the guided meditation. And I would recommend that you do a guided meditation to start off with if you're not confident enough just asking to connect to an ancestor. Setting up the altar, we've talked about that with the photos, with family heirlooms, things that you may have inherited or things that they may have given you if they're relatives who you've had physical connection with. And sharing family stories is another way that you can honor your ancestors as well. All the different stories about the various different ancestors and what they did. When my sister was doing our family tree, we found out that one of my ancestors was actually the first person who was allowed to play violin professionally for the little congregation or the little township. back in the early 1800s. We found out that we had a bushranger, quite a reasonably famous bushranger in the family, Captain Thunderbolt, and all the history of his adventures, and he was quite a character. And for those of you who aren't Australian, you don't know what a bushranger is, they're kind of a bit like, they're an outlaw, but they're kind of like a hero outlaw, because in Australia we pretty much were. There was a lot of people who came out from England who were convicts and considered outlaws, even though they may have only stolen a loaf of bread to feed themselves. Uh, a lot of us have convicts in our ancestry here. So the bushrangers were outlaws, and but at the same time, they're kind of heroes. So you probably have very similar equivalents in the US, like the cowboys and various different characters there too. So it's a similar thing. We just call them bushrangers. So I had one of those in my family, which was great. Okay, I think it was pretty cool anyway. He was quite a good guy, really. He just stole horses from the wealthy. He didn't steal from the poor. So we had how you can connect with them, any one of those three ways, or even just asking them, setting up a circle and just asking an ancestor, preferably an ancestor that you know of to start with, like one that maybe your grandparents, someone you've met, someone you know in the physical world, because you know them. So there's a sense of familiarity and a sense of trust there with them too. Not all ancestors could be trusted. Not all ancestors were nice people. And just because they've passed on doesn't mean that they're going to be nice people on the other side either. They're probably still going to be pretty much the same. So when you're first setting up working with an ancestor, make sure that it's one that you knew, preferably in your physical life, because you've already got that connection to them and you've got that trust with them as well. Okay, Joe. It's probably also a good idea not to connect with relatives that passed away violently. I had an uncle I was close to who passed away through self-harm, and it was really bad how he passed away. Yeah, unless you're particularly wanting to, unless you had a connection with them and you're feeling in some way that you could work towards healing something, or you have something in common with them that you want to co-heal, then yeah, if it doesn't, because that ancestor is still going to be in that same, probably in that same energetic space. So yeah, make sure it's one, when you're first starting, connect with ones that you had a good relationship with and that feel familiar to you in a way that opens your heart and brings you that sense of joy. Because when you do connect with those ones, it can be a lot of fun, and you can certainly, because it's energetic, the connection is energetic, it's like your heart chakra just opens up and you can experience beautiful, beautiful joy and love with those particular ancestors. Whereas if it's ones that you've maybe had a jagged relationship with, or their ancestors you haven't had a connection with, and maybe they have been a little bit traumatized or something, then you may not necessarily want to get involved with their energy unless you're doing specific healing, or that's the sort of work that you do. Because not everybody is a healer, and not everybody is here to heal, ancestors or anyone or anyone or any entity that has problems. We're here to work on ourselves so that we can then work on whatever our potential is. And when you're working on yourself first, you're putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. And you can then help other people. But you do have to help yourself first before you can help others. That is very true. Okay, so some people may find that the skepticism can get in the way. Am I really connecting to, grandpa? Or is that just my imagination? There can be emotional blocks too, particularly if it's a relative that you are close to. There may be still some grief there that you may need to work with. And working with them can help you with the grief. It can help you let the grief and the loss and that sense of sadness and help you move through the grieving process by working with your ancestor in that way, because you're still setting up a connection to them and working through the grief, allowing yourself to grieve and allowing yourself to experience the physical loss of that person. So that's a way that you can work with ancestors that you've had a physical connection with in the physical life. And of course, not knowing where to start. So starting, of course, is that I'd say guided meditation is a good place to start. I haven't got a guided meditation on ancestor work at the moment, but it's definitely something that I will consider doing for sure. Now, when it comes to approaching ancestral work, you do want to do it, of course, with respect. So respect for them, and you also want to demand respect for yourself as well. There's no reason why any spirit, whether it be a deity or another sort of spirit or an ancestor, there's no reason for them to be nasty to you or unruly or in any way. There's no need for it, and it's not something that really should happen if you're dealing with a spirit that has respect. And if you're finding that those things are happening, then it's time to cut or sever the connection and just stand your ground, because no spirit being that is really connected to true source and love and compassion is going to act that way or be that way. So you want to make sure that you are working with beings who are beyond the human ego and beyond that kind of bullying or nastiness. Because sometimes lower astral entities can jump in and pretend that they are deities or pretend that they are what they're not. And that's why we have circles and set circles up to protect against that kind of thing. And you always have the right to banish and give license to depart with that. Remember, as a human having a spiritual being as yourself, having a human experience, we do have the right to assert ourselves when it comes to working with the spiritual or the astral plane. You always have that right to assert yourself. You're never subservient to anything at all, because you are a divine being. You're here having an experience. We're not 100% sure why we're here having this weird experience. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there. There's all sorts of theories out there. But the thing is, you are divine beings. So you're here having the experience for whatever reason you came here to have the experience for. And you have the right to be able to assert yourself when it comes to working with other spirit beings or non-physical beings. There's no reason for you to have to do things that another spirit being tells you to do, or to think in some way that it's trying to stop you or that it has some kind of hold on you, because as a human, you're the one who has the power. Okay. So dealing with skepticism, it's a hard one to deal with, because if you're skeptic, you're going to always go, well, was that or was it not? And at the end of the day, you really just have to come down to what it felt like. Did it feel real? How did it feel? Did it feel very, very good and very positive? Or did it feel negative in some way? And just, if you're somebody who's more in your gut and has gut feelings, then really tune in with your gut and how your gut feels. If you're more intuitive, then tuning into your heart and how did you feel in your heart chakra when you're having that experience? Did it feel like it was opening your heart up and making it flower out? Or was it something that just sort of felt like it was more in the head in that area? Your emotional blocks, again, the grieving, allow yourself to grieve. And if you have any negativity or anything towards an ancestor, you can certainly have it out with them. I've done that, I have had it out with some of my bloodline, and ones I knew here in physical after they've passed, as part of my healing, as part of the shadow work and releasing those beliefs and everything. And I guess given the type of people that they were, I didn't have any issues with them, and they certainly didn't have any issues with me doing that. Because often when you're working on yourself, uh, sometimes if they're present, they can see the work that you're doing, and they can see how what they've passed on or what they've done has affected you too. So sometimes they can actually help you with that, or you can work with forgiveness work with them, that kind of thing too. So just make sure that you do have those boundaries, though, with them, the same as you would have boundaries with any other spirit that you're working with, that your boundaries are your boundaries, and that maybe there's only certain times you connect and other times you don't connect, and learn how to switch off your connection to the spirit world as well, so that you're not always connected to it if you don't want to be. So that's just practicing boundaries, general boundaries. Okay. Hi, Dante. So working with your ancestors can provide you with a sense of being, like a sense of it's okay to be here, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. And often we feel the need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We don't want to be all very much a case of feeling that we're alone in the world. And when you're working with your ancestors, you're not alone in the world, because the world is bigger than just this 3D reality. There's a lot that is happening in the universe that we can't see, we can't taste, we can't touch, we can't hear with our 3D senses. But that doesn't mean it's not going on. It's just that we're limited in what we can be aware of, particularly consciously. We can't be aware of too much with our conscious mind. The subconscious mind's aware of every little detail of everything that's going on. And so it does pick things up. And it will be probably the part of you that may pick up connection to your ancestors. If you're having trouble connecting with your ancestors too, in a more of a conscious way, you may find that dream work is another option for you, that you may dream of your ancestors. And so doing dream work where you're writing down your dreams every day to help you remember them. You may find that there's messages that come through from your ancestors through your dreams. And if you practice lucid dreaming, where you are aware that you're dreaming when you're dreaming, you can find that maybe some ancestors might be a part of that too. And if they are, have a conversation with them and learn from them. You can ask your ancestors to even be present if you're doing readings. So if you're doing tarot readings or something like that, you might ask for their opinion on something, or their guidance on something. But just remember that just because somebody's died doesn't mean they will all of a sudden become enlightened. They generally are pretty similar to how they were before they died, and they may realize some things on the other side, for sure. But it doesn't mean that everybody who passes instantly becomes, like a Buddha or something like that. We still carry a lot of our stuff with us into the next life. As we know from when we're incarnating, we still have stuff from past lives that we're still working through in this life. Okay. Any comments today? So has anybody got any questions or anything particular that you'd like to share about your ancestors, or maybe is there an ancestor you'd like to have more of a connection to? Have you got any interesting ancestors that have done things that are probably more publicly known as well? That can always be a little bit of fun. I'll give you time to answer that. If you do want to learn Wicca and Witchcraft with me, join up to the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. So that's a 12-month course where you start right from the beginning of learning energy work and doing guided meditations to get you connected to your energy, get you connected to your inner magic, as well as the ritual side of witchcraft, like setting up circles, working with your tools, your magical tools, working with the elements, working with the moon, working with the Sabbats, the deities, all of that over a 12-month period. So it gives you some structure to your practice, and it gives you motivation to practice, because it's a practical course. It's not just information that you could find anywhere online these days. It is about, this is what you're going to practice this month, and you practice it for the whole month or longer. Some people do take longer than a month to do it, which is fine. You've got as long as you like to do it. And then the next month there's a new module, and you build on the skills from the module before. So if you're ready to practice it and you're looking for a bit of discipline for yourself, or just a bit of structure to practice, because having structure does help you be able to go, okay, this is what's next, and you can do that, and then you can do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It just gives you a bit of something to know that you're working towards. Then the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy is great for that. And the whole point, the whole thing, is to get you connected to your craft again, to get you connected to your potential and who you are as a spiritual being having a human experience. So you're connecting to yourself as much as you're connecting to nature and deity and the witchcraft path. So I'll put a link in the description field. Oh, there is a link in the description field below this video. I'll pop a link in the chat as well, and you can find a link to the information about that course on my website, mysterywitchschool.com, on my front page, and also on my courses tab too, if you're having a look at the tabs. Is it possible to have ancestors that are not part of our same direct bloodline, like if one shares the same spirit or interests? Well, it's interesting, because when I experienced my ancestors, when my father passed, I also experienced that there was another group of spirits there who I felt was some kind of connection, but they weren't necessarily my familial connection. There was some other kind of connection. It's hard to put into words what they were. You may have a connection with other spirits, or connections with spirits that have similar interests, and you can certainly work with them. So there's nothing stopping you from working with those spirits. And who knows, there may be some other connection there. It might not necessarily mean that you've had physical, biological connection to them through physical ancestry, but you may have other, like, spirit guide connections to them. Like, they may have been a part of your life as a guide for generations, or part of your family's guidance as well. So it's like there's these guiding spirits that can be a part of your ancestry as well. But when it comes to other spirits, I'd say they're probably coming to you as guides, or they're coming to you from a place where you're ready to work with that next in your life. And you don't necessarily have to have had a physical connection with them in 3D reality for them to still be guides. Yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on, are they ancestors or are they not ancestors? I think that if you're working with spirit guides who are there to help you, and you're finding that the work is very positive, don't worry so much about whether they've been related to you, or whether they're coming from, because we're all connected anyway. Everything is connected. We're all connected. So we're not connected to anyone or anything in the greater cosmic scheme. We are all a part of the one unity sort of consciousness. That's us, deities, spirits, everything. Okay. Okay then, thank you everybody for coming along to the live. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Hi Maria. I thought when we passed away we became eternally happy. I don't know about that. Yeah, I think there is definitely people, especially people who work with the other side, that it's not necessarily eternal happiness. We might be while we're on that side, but when we come back, we're going through all this stuff again. So, and some spirits still won't let go of the life. And when they won't let go of the physical life and move on, they will hold on to all of that negativity as well. So the way to become eternally happy is to work on yourself while you're in this life, and to work towards happiness and internal happiness in this life, so that when you do pass on, that moment of passing on is your moment of really being able to become enlightened. It's your moment of really being able to embrace the love and the compassion. And when you can embrace that at the moment of transition, then you do definitely have the opportunity to be eternally happy. But we're working on that in our lifetime, our physical life as well, because you'll be more prepared for it when you pass if you're working on yourself now in this life and doing the shadow work in this life, and becoming happier in this life will help you in the next. That what you live now determines a lot about what happens afterwards. So that's why it's important for us to work on ourselves now, so that we can continue to evolve. The bookshelves are they coming back? Bookshelves. I'm not sure what that means. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week. And we have a new moon coming up on Thursday. The video that's coming up on around that time is actually about working with the dark moon. So it fits in quite well, because even though technically it's a new moon from an astronomy point of view, it's still that dark moon energy until we start to see the moon in the sky. And that's when it's really time to take off with the new things. Okay. Oh, my bookshelf. Okay, Dante. Yes, they will come back. The reason I'm in here is because of the construction next door. They've got drills and they're just very noisy. So I've had to move in here just to get away from the noise for a while, and hopefully they're only a couple of months away from being finished. And then when they've done that, I'll be back in the room with the bookshelves again. Okay. Okay, blessed be everyone. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.